welcome into Raptors today. Another off day for your Toronto Raptors as they get set to take on the San Antonio Spurs at home. Akil Augustine, Sherm Hamilton, the principal, Paul Jones, and gentlemen, it has been an interesting season to say the least, okay? People were ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater earlier in the year. A lot of panic. Now the Raptors only sit a half game out of the play-in, 4.5 games out of a guaranteed playoff spot. Has the tide kind of changed after that 7-game stretch, which was kind of like, a marker in the sand, Jonesy, for this season?
Well, a lot of people figured that trip would go a long way to determine, do you let it go and start looking towards next year and maybe selling off some pieces and trying to restock? Or remember last year they finished winning 2 out of 3 in the last 30 games and made this meteoric rise up the standings. It definitely signals a marker, but still, though, which way? It marks a point where the Raptors still have to make a decision. The front office still has to make a decision. If you unload pieces, then you're definitely looking to, rebuild, reload a little, back up a bit. And if not, you have faith in this team as it is, and you keep moving forward. Although I will say, it's been 55 games. It's not like 20 games and they don't know. They're presenting a kind of a pattern of who they are. And can you break or change that pattern for the last 27 games?
Can you, sure?
Well, they showed last year that they could.
Yeah.
That's true. Very rare.
So it's possible. I just think that 7-game road trip they just came off of, it didn't eliminate them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you have a bad road trip, that hill is very, very steep at that point. Now, based on what they have coming up, they have a chance to kind of get closer to the watermark. So I just think that it put them in a position to not say, okay, that hill is unclimbable at this juncture. But with the trade deadline coming, who knows? It might change the whole dynamic of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just teased what's coming up for the Toronto Raptors. Matchups with the Spurs, of course, who are straight up going for Wembanyama at this point. Loses a 14 of the last 15.
What did you say? Brick?
Straight up. Oh, brick for Vic.
Brick for Vic.
That's
Brick
the
for
campaign a lot of teams have involved themselves in. You've got Utah, which is a tough team. They took an L2 on that road trip. And then Detroit, suffering from injuries, of course. Their pick, Cade Cunningham, unavailable for most of the season. And Orlando, who's kind of like they had a hot stretch, and then they cooled off.
But they got the Raptors twice.
They did. They stung the Raptors twice despite...
They also stung Boston twice.
Yeah. Which is weird, right? So it's an interesting fight resume. They show up for the big ones. But talk about this next stretch, because, if you play perfect, you're 29-30. You talked about that high water mark for the Raptors. How big is this next stretch, and how do you think things change if they do perform well?
And again, Akil, after the San Antonio game, all bets are off until we see what the front office, what direction we think they're going to move in. Well, they show they're going to move in terms of trades not that they're not moving in that direction, but those trades and those changes might come in June. And to me, that's the other trade deadline day, which is draft day, because you know exactly what those picks are. It's not just a random second-round pick. It's number 41. It's number 36. You know exactly what that is. So after the game on Wednesday, you still have to see what direction's going. To your point, though, yeah, you can climb the standings and be right there. You can be right there in a guaranteed playoff spot.
In a muddled Eastern Conference.
The Raptors moved up last night, and they didn't play, right? That's like the old line. The Eastern Conference playoffs is like the Mafia. You're never out of it, even when you think you are. So they don't play last night, the Raptors, and they jump from 12 to 11 because people in front of them are backing up. So it's a key stretch, and it's never, as much as people may want to rebuild and they talk about tanking and getting draft picks, I don't ever see a time where winning is bad for a team or an organization.
There's only one game on that board that matters. It's the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
After that, we don't know what this team is going to look like. If they stand pat, we can talk about the rest of that stand before the All-Star break and kind of what it means. But if they make a change, then the expectation might change. Depending on what's moved, what isn't moved, you might have a different outlook going into the All-Star break. So I just think that, the Raptors traditionally have stood fairly pat during trade deadline times. But who knows? Anything can happen. And I just don't think, projecting past the trade deadline at this point, that conjecture is not solid. It's not it's not grounded in any fact based on not knowing what they would do.
How difficult of a stretch has this been for the players, though? Because not only are you not playing up to your marked expectations, but every time you turn around, a Raptors name is in a rumor. You get Kyrie traded. You hear about someone's getting packaged for Spencer Dinwiddie. You hear about OG's name in so many different situations. It's been a tough situation across the board for these guys to kind of lock in on the mission at hand.
I don't necessarily know if that's true. I think it's more irritating for them to hear the conversations and have to answer questions about it.
Yeah.
I think for them on the inside, it's about the next game. How do we get it right? How do we get to – they're human. They understand and hear all that stuff. But I don't think their frustration is about trade deadline because a lot of them have gone through it many times.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new to them. Having to talk about it, I think, is the irritation to them. But they're professionals. They get paid. They know the business of this. They understand it. So if you're going to allow that to impact you, then – there's questions about what you're doing in the moments. But I just think this group is mature. They understand the business. They stay locked in on the task within the locker room. And that, to me, is a luxury that this franchise has had for many years.
Because of the guys that they have, too, in those positions. The
Quality
leadership. Guys. Yeah, Fred, Pascal. Like, they've been through it. If not, not having been traded or anything, but they were in the locker room when Norm Powell was moved out, when their guy that they played 905 with, DeLon Wright, was suddenly gone. It happens. You turn around and here's a guy walking in that, you were trying to take his head off last week. He's now wearing the same jersey as you. So it's if you listen to that noise, there's an old adage that says, if you worry about your job, you can't do your job.
Yep.
And most of those guys are into doing their jobs, and the other stuff is noise.
Okay, well, some other noise going on around the league, of course, is between the NBA and the NBA PA, who have actually extended the early opt-out contract deadline on their current deal from Wednesday to March 31st. And that's a big deal. Break down exactly why that's such a big deal for this league, Jonesy.
We're talking money, Akil. And not like my money that jingles. Like this money folds. Like this is serious money. And I think right now both sides are looking at each other. There's stuff they want to ask for, but they're just kind of walking on eggshells around upsetting one side or the other and killing this whole thing and taking all this money and throwing it away or putting it in a position where now nobody can get to it.
One thing nobody wants is a lockout.
Exactly. And the subsidiary of that is your game is going great guns across the world.
Yes.
You don't want to upset that. You don't want to have people, and fans can be, they can be
fickle,
very fickle, and say, you know what, lockout. Look at what happened with the NFL. Oh, he's taking a knee. I'm not watching. Like that's the kind of stuff that the casual fan, the hardcore, we're going to follow. We're going to be in there no matter what. But the casual fan that you're trying to recruit, you don't want to upset them.
Yeah, they have a different appetite for the game.
Yeah, I think there are things out there that both sides are very adamant about. And I don't think it's going to be as much of an eggshell situation. I think it's going to be more of a line in the sand situation. The financial component is something that we've heard a lot about. The players taking time off of games is something that has been discussed at a high level. And I really think when you talk about the future earnings of the NBA, it's just escalating. Like, the product is at a great place right now. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the financial component is escalating at that rate, there's going to be concerns on how to split that up moving forward, right? And I think right now, if things can be addressed in conversations prior to the deadline, it would be great. But I do think there are some hard topics that both sides have kind of in their back pockets that they want to address, and I would hate to see a lockout. I would hate to see a lockout at this point.
Now, according to the rumors, the owner's backing off a bit from their non-hard cap, but kind of a salary ceiling. But the one thing that, of course, kind of is a big concern, not just for owners, but for fans who buy tickets to the games, is how do you incentivize players to continue to play close to 70, 80 games a season? Is there any ideas, any machinations out there that you think can change the tide around games played?
I think for the NBA, with respect to the stars, the words that kill everything are back-to-back, right?
Yeah.
Like, the schedule comes out in August. Think of how many people bought tickets to see the Lakers and LeBron's one trip into Toronto, and it was on the second night of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
And he didn't play. And it's not like it was a surprise or he was not healthy. He did leave the game the night before with the flu. But Darvin Ham revealed in his pregame news conference that, yeah, this is something Bron and I had talked about, maybe targeting the Toronto game, second night of a back-to-back, not playing. And now, are the fans supposed to look at that when they're buying tickets in August and the pre-sale goes out in September and you run to the wicket or you get on your computer and like, you're not looking at, oh, that's the fourth game on a 6-game
If you wait, that
trip.
ticket's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. So I that is something that, and then there's a shared responsibility here. We're hearing from the players. Well, hey, wait a minute. It's not all us wanting to rest. Some of the guys, yeah, but sometimes we want to play. And the medical staffs are saying we think it's better long term that you don't. So there's a number of variables that go into that soup.
There are, and honestly, I don't know how you legislate that. I don't. Maybe it's contractually, but I don't know how you legislate that because at the end of the day, if a player says it's not well, like I need to sit this game out,
You can't question injury. Yeah.
right? You're not going to question the integrity of the player. I mean, internally there can be all kinds of talk, but really you can't make a guy play who doesn't feel like.
Especially with hindsight, it comes back to bite you that he was hurt.
There you go, and that's the
Grant
collateral
Hill.
component of it.
Grant Hill.
So I don't know how, to answer your question, Akil, I don't know how you legislate that in terms of an agreement.
I would look at your word incentivize,
Yes.
Akil, and if they let me make the schedule, I'd take out all back-to-backs. I'd start the season maybe a little earlier, push it a little later, like a few days, like a week kind of on either end, and try to take out all back-to-backs.
Well, they also talked about condensing the season to 72 games.
Yep. And that could help.
Which
Then
could-
guys play
could change
50,
as well. Yeah,
right?
but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm like. Listen, we know this.
Yeah.
If there's a way to work a system, people
Yes.
are going to figure
Yeah,
out how to
for
work
sure.
a
Humans
system.
are inventive.
100%. So
For sure.
that's what I say. I don't know unless it's like this hard, either you do it or you don't, and then at that point it becomes a real battle to maintain a friendly relationship between the league and its owners.
Okay, well, next big thing on the docket, the trade deadline. So I want to go back to years past, history past. What are some of the big trade deadline trades that you guys remember that stand out to you right now? Sherm, I'll start with you.
Well, I remember the Detroit Pistons in 2004.
We were
'Cause
sitting in the studio that night, right?
We had a conversation with John Hammond, who was, I think he was the assistant GM,
GM,
there
and Joe
in
Dumars
Detroit. And Joe
right-hand.
Dumars
Yeah.
was the GM there. And the trade, we were on air all day talking about potential trades and all that stuff. And we happened to get John Hammond on the phone, and they made the trade for Rasheed Wallace.
Yes.
And that was the trade that led them to a championship.
From
Remember,
Atlanta, not Portland.
100%.
There were
Went to
shenanigans
Atlanta.
in the loophole, right?
Right.
He played one game for
Right.
Atlanta
Yeah.
that year.
It was just basically a stopover.
Yeah.
And there happened to be a game when he was there. But eventually getting him to Detroit, adding him with Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace, and Tayshaun Prince and Rip Hamilton. And, that squad became solidified with Rasheed Wallace. And that to me was because we got a chance to talk to John Hammond, and he was emphatic about the fact that Rasheed's coming to help. The rest of the guys can't relax because Rasheed's here. They need them to play at a level and Rasheed to play at a level to get it done. And they ended up getting it done. So that was a big trade
2003,
deadline.
2004
Yeah.
NBA
The
champions.
gentleman's sweep over the Lakers.
Yeah,
gave him
with
one.
Shaquille and Kobe.
Yeah,
gave one.
that was
And
the
if-
end of that dynasty.
And if Larry Brown decided to foul in game 2, it would have been a sweep. He was against fouling, and the Lakers ended up. That one rings a bell with me. 96, when the Rockets traded for Clyde Drexler at the trade deadline, bringing him back to Houston, and they won a title. And, of course, the only other one that I can think of where a trade deadline was made, guy came in, made an impact, won a title, Marc Gasol coming to Toronto.
The final piece.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, my very first season broadcasting in the NBA, trade deadline smacked me in the head. I was traveling all day as the Raptors were playing in Utah. I was on a milk run flight, like Toronto, Atlanta, Dallas, Salt Lake City. I got to the hotel, and it's my first year as a broadcaster. I'm sitting at the back of the plane. I'm kind of making friends with these guys. I'm getting to know about their families and stuff. And I get to the hotel, and I'm walking in with my bag. It's about 4 hours before the game. And I see Eddie Pinkney walking out. And I said, Eddie, you going to get some shots up early? He's like, nah, Jonesy, I got traded. I'm going back to Philly. I'm like, what?
Okay, we need more Jonesy impersonation in the show, by the way.
And then I see Tony Massenberg walking out like somebody had just stolen all his money. He was fuming. T-Matt, he goes, I'm out, man. I'm out. I got traded. I'm out. And the business part of it, as a young broadcaster in the league, it just beat me up. And I remember Isaiah doing his availability after that. Just looked right in the camera, and it was like, hey, man, this is business. And that's the first time somebody said to me, if you want loyalty, this is the NBA. If you want loyalty, buy a dog, because it's not happening in the NBA.
I'm going to give some honorable mentions, of course. You got Carmelo Anthony, that huge move by Masai Ujiri to the Knicks from Denver. I also want to shout out Isaiah Thomas and that move from Phoenix, because that gave us 2 amazing years of Isaiah Thomas as a Boston Celtic, some of the best basketball he's ever played in his life, and really a period I wish I could go back to. Unfortunately, it wasn't a game night last night for the Toronto Raptors, but it was a game night for the Raptors 905, so we hand you off to our Raptors 905 broadcast crew of Warren Ward and Matt Cullen.
Thanks very much, Akil. An historic night in Mississauga as the Raptors 905 celebrate the Capes for Kids in support of a great cause, children with disability, and raising awareness and conversations about inclusion. But it's the Maine Celtics tonight. They win by 3 points, Warren, and they do it on a big three-point shooting night.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they say basketball has changed, and a lot more teams are shooting threes. Maine, they put on their three-point capes, and they were able to knock a ton of those down, and predicated much so by ball movement, but they have experience in doing so, and they're big men, they're guards, everyone able to knock down threes, and a lot of them were off the dribble. A lot of them were from passes as well, and we've seen just dynamic shooting tonight, and it's literally changed basketball, and if you can't guard the three-point line, you end up with nights like this.
Raptors 905, though, showed a lot of fight in this one, trailed by 8 points at halftime, came back and took the lead for a couple of moments in the fourth quarter on a career night from Ryan Hawkins, 17 off the bench.
And he played extremely well. Came in the game, and he's done this multiple times. He's come in and been the energizer bunny for this team, and today he did it quietly. I didn't even realize he had 14 points up until the fourth quarter. I looked at the stat sheet, but he does it in a variety of ways. He's always in the right position, especially defensively, knowing that he's not the quickest player, and even on drives like that, able to contribute. And this 905 team is very, very lucky to have a guy like that. He doesn't even ask for plays, doesn't demand the basketball, but he's in the right position, and he finds a way to contribute.
Well, the Maine Celtics and the Raptors 905 will play again on Wednesday morning. An early start, 11 a.m. Eastern time. The 905, 3-2 on this 6-game homestand. They try and close it out with a winning record against the now 10-7 Maine Celtics. All right, Akil, back to you.
We also got to give a big shout out to Pascal Siakam, who was in the house last night at the Paramount 5 Food Center with his PS43 charity, as they were raising funds for the Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Clinic, and they set a new Guinness record for most people wearing capes at an indoor event, and were able to raise funds. And Pascal says he will match all donations up to $100,000. Up to March 10th. So big shouts out to Pascal, really getting involved in the community.
Nice.
Right now we're going to have a little fun, though, with our guys. We have producers Jake and Akil with their grab bag of Raptors questions, and we're looking for all-time Raptors, okay? So you're going to grab one of these leaflets, sheets here, and you're going to see what's addressed and choose your all-time Raptor. Jonesy,
Go ahead.
Jonesy, you can go first.
It's like the birthday party, Jake and Nikhil's grab bag.
Yes, exactly. We're at the behest of our producers right now.
Ooh, Raptor with the smoothest jump shot.
Ooh, all-time Raptor with the smoothest jump shot.
Number 30, Del Curry.
Okay. Oh, tough to argue that. Concur.
Most effortless for sure.
Yeah.
Effortless for sure.
I would give Vince an honorable mention, because Vince's shot was kind of silky.
It was good. It got better, but it was kind of a flat shot at first.
Okay.
But Dell was a shooter.
Yeah, and the father of the greatest shooter of all time.
He owns that.
I'm
You're right.
I'm going to give another name that might. Andrea Bargnani had a pretty jump shot too. I think he was ahead of his time with the way the team was playing, but technically, he had a pretty jump shot.
He was ahead of
Anthony
his time.
Parker had a pretty good jump shot as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, he was fundamental with everything, right?
Great GM now.
Yes, sir.
All right, all-time greatest Raptor.
Funniest Raptor.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Who is the funniest Raptor of all time?
Wow.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Wow, yeah, it
I'm
is.
gonna buy you some time here.
I even like go back to like a Sonny Weems,
Okay.
who was a bit silly and
Yep.
had a lot of fun. Even Pascal when he first got to the Raptors, him and Jakob,
Yeah.
they were a pretty fun duo.
Honorable mention to Reggie Evans, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty funny guy, I got to
He
admit.
was funny, but he was real. Like
Yeah, he
that
was funny and
the,
scary.
That was the
You know
funny
who
part
reminds
of
me
it.
that? Funny and real? Charles Oakley.
Yeah,
Like he'd say stuff and
because he don't bring eggs to a barbecue. He meant it though.
Don't bring eggs to a barbecue. I remember that. I got to use that at some point.
He used to
That's
say,
funny, but he's real.
Okay,
he used
Jonesy.
to say stuff like, "You can be young, but don't come in this league and expect us to give you a break." And you kind of chuckle, but it's real.
The ball's in your court, Jonesy. All-time greatest Raptor.
Who could run for office?
Oh,
Ooh.
simple.
Who?
Well, first, you want me to give you mine?
Oh yeah.
It's Anthony Parker.
Okay.
Oh yeah. AP.
All right.
Yeah.
I would say, are we including front office? Aside for president.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
That's a no. That's a
But
layup.
if we're
That's a layup.
talking players,
Yeah.
Kyle for mayor.
Kyle from
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think,
or lawyer.
yeah. I think Anthony Parker though, like he's likable across the
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
So I'm in
yeah,
agreement. All-time greatest Raptor for Sherm in what department?
Who could be a great coach? Bet on yourself.
Fred VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah. No disagreements there. I think. I also think I kind of with your original point. If your son is the greatest shooter of all time,
Yes.
I think Del Curry could coach.
Yeah.
Personally, there's knowledge there. There's a wealth of knowledge.
What would be the fly in the ointment for Dell? He's way too sarcastic at times. The way he jabs people with his sarcasm, the old "many a truth hath been said in jest." That's Dell, and he's jabbing you with those, and you'll laugh, but when you stop laughing, you got wait a minute. I need to think about what he said there.
All right, another one for our guys. Sherm, I do believe you are next.
Oh, it's another one?
There's one left.
One more.
Okay.
We have to give back the hat.
Oh, Raptors with the best hair.
Best hair all time Toronto Raptor. Who's got the freshest coif?
Jalen Rose used to always be lined up
I think
like he
it's
is
fake.
on TV now.
I think it's fake.
Really?
Not then.
Okay, all right. Okay, the current one can't be real.
The best hair. I'm trying to think of the biggest afro out there. Who had a good fro for the Raptors?
I mean, I think Amir Johnson rocked the fro at points when he had his braids.
He had a little bit of yeah. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
It's not stuff I pay attention to.
Yeah, me either.
And we don't have that many. Bebe.
Baby?
Shouts out to producer
Thank
Jake.
you.
Baby
with
couldn't even get the hat on draft day.
Kind of like me right now.
Hands down,
Best hair.
Jake hit it on the head.
Yep.
It's Bebe.
Hands down, baby.
I like that
Best hair
stuff
for
that
around.
can't be controlled
Did we have anybody like that had?
because mine
Like
is
this.
easily controlled.
Yes. God's your barber.
I haven't seen a barber in years. Any of those cats that had the gel and did Linus Kleza, did he used to gel his stuff
He
up?
had the
and-
military buzz. He had the Zon Tabak look going for most of his
Yeah,
career
a bit,
here with
yeah,
the Toronto
yeah.
Raptors, I imagine.
Yeah. Who had a long, kind of flowy kind of mane? Anybody?
Kawhi. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap this up. That
Please
does it for
do. Please
our
do.
off-day edition of Raptors Today. Do remember your Toronto Raptors take on the San Antonio Spurs. TSN's got the call on television and the radio call, TSN Radio 1050. That does it for Sherm Hamilton, Akil Augustine, producer Nikhil, my guy, the principal Jonesy, and, of course, Jake. We'll see you guys next week.